This Raw Vision video is brought to you by Metro Solar, proud partner of the Richmond Football Club.
Welcome back to Talking Footy, and after a big win against the Lions, Damien Hardwick joins us on the panel. Welcome, Damien.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
It's always good that week after a victory, isn't it?
It makes it a little bit easier, must admit. But we've got a short break this week versus the D's, who are playing some pretty tough footy at the moment.
The Tigers, I mean, round one, very good. Round three, very good. Round two, not so. How do you get that consistency? Or is it... That's always what you're searching for, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it probably goes to show the evenness of the competition. You only got to be off about 10% of your game and you can get beaten like we did against the Bulldogs. And I think that's evident in the season thus far, that every side has to come to play week in, week out. Otherwise you're going to get your pants pulled by some form of the opposition. So, we were really disappointed with our game versus the Bulldogs. We go out and replicate a better brand of footy versus Brisbane, but we've got to make sure we back that up this week versus the D's on a big Friday night clash.
Is that the hardest thing about coaching, though, now? Because obviously before the game you've got the players sitting there, you think they're mentally prepared, just like they were in round one, and then they go out and perform like that in round two. Do you get a gauge on whether the players are a little bit flat in the warm-up or they're up? Do you get a gauge at all?
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. It's funny. I think after years of coaching now, you sort of stop looking for those sort of signs because you probably outsmart yourself sometimes. But there's often simple solutions for why you aren't performing to a certain level. And we, forensically dissect the football to a great deal of detail now, and we knew where we went wrong in the Bulldogs game and managed to rectify that versus this week versus Brisbane. But the consistency of performance is what we're after.
Were you surprised to learn last week that Alex Rance might just walk away from AFL football?
Just a tad, Tim. Just a tad, would be fair to say. And listen, we're not too sure, and we'll sit down, myself and Dan Richardson, and talk with Alex over the next week or two and figure out. But look, I've got no doubt Alex, in my opinion, will remain in a Richmond jumper next year.
You got no doubt in your mind?
No doubt.
Why are you so confident?
I'm very confident in Alex as a footballer, Tim. But I
think a lot of Tiger fans would like to know why.
Look, we think we're in a good situation with Alex at the moment. Where the way he's playing is an outstanding brand of football. That he's playing well for our jumper. He's very happy where he is, and I've got no doubts that he'll be here next year.
Dimmer, I loved the game of the skipper on the weekend, Trent Cotchin. He was outstanding. There was an article in the paper perhaps questioning where he was winning his footy and how he was going about leading the Tigers. Does he read things like that? Does that sort of thing spur him on? Or is it... I mean, he's a quality player. It seems to me that he'd be self-motivated and wouldn't take any notice of that.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I don't know whether he read it. I didn't see the article. I heard there was an article about it. But I think the players are that good these days that their performance is, analysed on a weekly basis, but they don't go up or down. They just try to perform to a high level all the time. He copped a really heavy tag in the Carlton game. They did a very good job on him. Bulldogs game, he was better, but not quite to the standard. But then this week, I thought he was outstanding. And he had, I think, 15 or 16 contested possessions. The great thing about his game on the weekend, 10 possession games as a midfielder, which is, an elite standard. So we're really happy with the way he applied himself, both from a contested point of view and defensively in the contest also.
Cotchin's your best player, but is Brett Delidio the most important player at the club? Whenever he doesn't play, you just don't win.
Yeah, it's a good point. He is a...
Will he play this week, by the way?
Look, it's probably touch and go at this stage. Yep. We've been a little bit stiff with... initially it didn't look like much. Now it's sort of progressed to a stage where he hasn't had a hiccup as such, but it's taken a little bit of time to get better. So a little bit disappointed with that. But he probably hasn't had any luck leads either with the start of last year and this year. So we've just got to manage him a little bit more carefully going forward. He is a bit of a Mercedes-Benz, so to speak. He's a very finely tuned athlete. But look, he's a really important player to us. So I've got no doubt. And when he's in the side, we're a lot better.
You mentioned, going back to Trent Cotchin, the heavy tag that he got in the Carlton game. Did you see much of the Bernie Vince, Paddy Dangerfield match-up? Did you have any issues with any of the tactics being used there?
Oh, no, listen, I think it was a good, hard, tough contest. And, Bernie, to his credit, I actually really enjoy the way Bernie plays a game. And the thing with Patrick, it was a tough contest, but I think it was reasonably fair. I think the umpires adjudicated it pretty well. So, look, we obviously understand that that's probably coming Trent's way again this week, and he's used to it. We've just got to make sure we give him some help in that area, and it's something we've been working on.
What about, from your point of view, the application of a tag or a run-with type player? We generally see one player from an opposition targeted, but is there room for two players to play that type of role within your team or not?
Oh, I probably feel that most of the sides now are probably tending to go away from the genuine tagger, because the scope of the game now is such on offence. I think that the amount of offensive sway we've seen this year has been enormous. The sides are regularly kicking over 100 points, having 30 shots on goal, which we haven't seen for a period of time. And, to have one guy that's a pure negator, it limits their flexibility within a contest. There's certainly a role for those run-with players, and, a player like Ryan Crowley or the bloke sitting next to me that are elite at that, can do that week in, week out because you can count on them. But to have a guy that can pinch hit in a manner like that is probably not going to get a role in a lot of sides.
Have you thought about what happens if the Tigers miss the finals this year?
Not Duck.
Not going to happen, Duck.
It's not going to happen.
So all we worry about is the immediate contest in front of us, and we work in 4-week blocks like most sides would do at this sort of start of the year, and then we take upon our next 4. So we've started off 2-1. We're looking to make that go 3-1 next week, and then we start our block of 4. We can't afford to be big picture. We've just got to worry about the week in front of us, because every contest at the moment is 50-50. Sides are still playing some inconsistent football, so never quite sure what you're going to get.
Damien, I'll get your reaction to the sub rule after we play this and you listen to what Paul Roos had to say. He was very blunt in what he thought about the sub rule today.
Well, should be abolished this week. It just serves no purpose at all. It's the worst rule ever brought in footy, but it'd be nice for him to change it. Well, I don't think it's going to happen. Is it realistic? It won't happen, but I can't see any reason why it wouldn't happen, but it won't happen.
Can I ask you this question? When the coaches sat down during the off-season, was it the major point of discussion then that everybody wanted the rule abolished? Because it's become a major point of discussion within the coaching ranks over the last couple of weeks. Yeah,
I wouldn't say it was a major point. It was certainly a point of discussion probably as a coaching fraternity felt with 120 rotations. We didn't feel there was a need for a sub now, because the rotations were limited from that aspect also. But look, it is a bit of a painful one to go through who your sub is. How many weeks can you play a sub before they've got to go back? And look, our preference would be to have the 4 players on the interchange, granted that we're limited with interchange also. When
players are injured, they're very isolated. I don't know whether you've heard this, but have a listen to what Nathan Grimer had to say about the injury that he's carrying at the moment and how he's felt about how he's getting through it.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm feeling at the moment, because, if you asked me a week ago, I was going to quit, and I still don't even know what I want to do at the moment. I'm sure over the next few weeks I want to get back and play, but at the minute, to be honest, I don't really care about football at all.
So that's obviously in the pre-season, but that's how isolated these players feel. As senior coach, very important. You're obviously focused on the team getting out there from week to week, but how important is it that you support these blokes when they're like that?
Yeah, very much so. Look, we've obviously lost another one this week, and Chris Knights, who's going to be out for 10 weeks. He's got to have surgery on that hamstring, and losing Ricky Pettard for a sustained period of time, and young Lambert as well. From our point of view, we can just try and keep them in the fold as much as they can, but it is a very volatile environment, AFL footy, and the ups and down swings that roundabouts that players go through. It's an emotional game also. So we've got a really strong department with our welfare that certainly look after the players, but also the families of the players as well, which is really important for the game in general.
I know you just said to Duck that you don't look too big picture. Can I go big picture for 1 second? Brisbane CEO Greg Swan said they're not confident of keeping James Aish. Do you guys go after someone like him at the end of the season?
Listen, we look at all aspects of our list management from that point of view, and it probably brings about a greater issue, I think, in AFL at the moment. Effectively, players coming out of contract after, I think Aish has been there 2 years, quality player, but he's effectively deemed himself a free agent thus far, and it probably brings about a greater issue within AFL football at the moment that, players have got to earn the right to earn their free agency, but then we've probably got players that can come out and dictate where they want to go as a young veteran. I think that's something as an AFL agenda we've got to fix, because clubs like the Brisbane Lions have lost a lot of quality young kids over the course of 3 to 4 years, and really hard for a bloke like Lepper to rebuild a footy club when he's trying to keep players in his doors. And I think it's a broader issue, but he's certainly a quality player.
With that broader issue, should it be harder for a second, third, fourth year type player who hasn't earned that free agency right yet? Should it be harder for them to be able to go? Tom Boyd saying, no, I don't care about my contract, I want to move. Should that be almost impossible to happen?
Well, it's not. I think the players have still got to have a say with regard to the move, but the club that is losing the player has got to have more right in where that player can actually go for a greater compensation. You can't be losing, quality players for inadequate compensation as far as I'm concerned, and the power's probably got to come a little bit more to the clubs. But that isn't going to change until the player movement system is changed with regard to players being able to veto trades, from my point of view.
Now, Dimmer, I know you watch this show every week. We've got
Absolutely,
the Blowtorch
Doug.
coming up later. And I'm talking about the courage of the players and ex-players having comment on when players maybe not courageous enough. Are they more courageous now than ever, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely, and in different ways as well. Like the amount of running that the players do, and funnily as a coach, we're all pretty hard, tough-out players. I'm moving away from Tim at the moment. but from our point of view, to hear the collisions now at ground level is horrifying. Yeah. And, these players now, like midfielders in our day, were 6 foot. Now they're 6'3". They're 95 kilos. They're going at astonishing rates. And, look, the quality and courage of players that play today by far exceed what we went around in.
At the beginning, you mentioned the fact that you're playing Friday night football this Friday against Melbourne. The eyes of all the football community watching that game. I mean, it sort of brings more scrutiny than probably any other game over the weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it's a big game. Obviously, an Anzac Eve clash that we and Melbourne are looking to have on a regular basis, and Ron Barassi will be lighting the cauldron before the game. It does bring upon the eyes of all Australians, and for a very special reason in an Anzac Day weekend, but one we're looking forward to taking on the challenge. And we're really disappointing in the corresponding game last year, so we're looking to make sure we set off and atone for that loss of last year.
Well, your timing's been impeccable. Always good to come on a program like this after a big weekend.
Hopefully I'll see you next week.